I am Jim Collison, and this is the CliftonStrengths Podcast Season 2, recorded on February 21st, 2023. In this CliftonStrengths podcast series, we look at the CliftonStrengths for Leaders report, one theme at a time, and today's theme is Activator. If you're listening live, we'd love to have you join us in our chat. If you don't see the chat, there should be a link to it right above me there. Or if you're listening after the fact and you have questions, you can always send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Dr. Jaclynn Robinson is our host today. She works as a senior learning and development consultant here with me at Gallup and has joined me for season 1 as well of the CliftonStrengths podcast, where we looked at well-being at work, one theme at a time. Jaclynn, always great to have you. Welcome back.
Yeah, we did. Well, hello. I was about to say welcome back to you too.
I like that.
Although
Yeah, we
technically,
did.
welcome back. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. I like that.
We did. Yeah, we did
through
well-being.
those.
It was great.
Yeah, it was a good. You can go back and review all those as well. If you're listening to this probably because you've got Activator, and so if you want to activate and go back to listen to Activator on season 1 of the Clifton Strengths podcast, do it right. I just paused this, maybe open a new browser window or something so you don't lose this, and you can get activated on it. Let's spend a little time setting the intro to this. What is Activator? How do we define that?
Activator is someone that can make things happen by turning thoughts into action. So you want to do things now rather than simply just talk about them.
Love that. Let's do it now. Let's do it.
And now.
That feels so good for high activators.
Does.
It feels good, right? I think there's a little adrenaline. I think this is one of those, we don't spend a lot of time on strengths thinking about the chemical makeup of our body and what strengths does to it. But I think Activator has that tendency to be driven that way. It feels good to get rolling. When I was young, as a child, I'd actually get almost a euphoric state of starting something new. It felt so good to just get something going and something new. But we're not talking about it as a child. We're talking about it in leadership capability. We've been spending some time thinking about this in the context of our CliftonStrengths for Leaders report. So what is the power of this theme then in a leadership role?
I think this leader is really good at getting people moving towards action. And if they're adept at matching talent to task, if we're thinking about surrounding themes, then they can delegate out those actions in a way that's efficient and has everyone's best talents in mind. Their inclination to act, so to speak, can help them push products or services to market faster as well. So that can serve the customer's needs more expediently. So a couple of or maybe 3 things that I just mentioned that are kind of that power-packed combo of Activator there.
Do you think that Activator can give confidence in some cases to be able to, we're going to talk about this maybe when we talk about needs of followers, but sometimes we just need people to get moving or maybe in a leadership role, demonstrate the movement of it. I think of like cybersecurity training, like there's nobody on the planet except maybe cybersecurity people who like going through those things. And yet as a leader, we've got an opportunity maybe to activate on it and get going, get it moving, to be an example to others, right? To get that, you know what? Hey, I did it. It's actually not as hard as it. We just came out of that. That's why it's a very fresh example. It's very fresh. How else could this theme lead others? What do you think?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head too with that confidence piece. There's that comfort and confidence they give people to say, just give it a whirl, give it a try, take it to action. It can live in the beta phase for a little bit and then we'll course correct. They have this comfort with trying and failing and trying and failing until they get it right. And they allow other people to have that comfort too, as opposed to feeling like it has to be perfect before they get it into market or, carry out a responsibility.
How much of the secret weapon of an activator is failure, do you think? I mean, because right, for many, failure is it's not allowed or it's not acceptable. All right, I am in fear of it, and I think for some activators, I'm actually not afraid of failing too much. I mean, that's not totally true. Maybe I'm selective in that, but respond to that a little bit. I mean, how much of a superpower is that to be able to push through that idea of failure?
Yeah, I think because they have comfort knowing that you can learn from adversity and obstacles, it is that superpower for them to go, there's a lot that can be learned in failure.
Yeah.
I can learn how to do something better. I can learn how to tweak it. I can learn what didn't work. It's a learning process versus something that's terrible and the end of the world for somebody, I think, with Activator. So there is
Yeah.
a lot of comfort in just going into beta. I'd rather try. The risk is in not trying, I think, for activators. It's
Bigger
like,
failure, right? Maybe
yeah.
not doing it is a bigger failure than doing it and failing,
Mhm.
right? Because you don't get any data,
No.
right? You don't get
No.
any. You're like, I just,
You're still just sitting at the table.
I ejected before we even got off the aircraft carrier. You're like, hey, the thing
Yes.
hasn't even taken off yet. You
Yes.
didn't you kind of didn't know. We're in the middle of a big software conversion right now for our certain recertification process, and this is the best time for me. It's just kicking off right this week. We're just starting to turn things on. This is when I get excited, and my counterparts start to fear, and I'm like, no,
Mhm.
this is awesome. This is actually the best part of it because we're gonna find all the weak links,
Yes.
all the problems with it. And not everybody likes that. I get it. But again, as a leader for me, that makes it exciting. Right. And I'm like, yeah, let's do
Mhm.
this thing. It's going to be terrible. I've said this. It's going to be terrible. And then it's going to get better. Right.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yes. We're
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
learn from it.
Now I got positivity 6. So you can hear that bleed through into that. So 5
Yeah.
activator, 6 positivity. Those two work pretty well together in the leadership role. But let's talk about in the report, we actually have a section talking about how this theme can hinder the leadership of others. Can you talk a little bit
Mhm.
about that?
Yeah, so this leader's inclination to just jump right in and get started, it can be daunting or unsettling for some folks on the team that are still just trying to gather information or intel
Mhm.
or just understand the bigger picture. So it can end up leading to inefficiency and miscommunication if this leader doesn't create what feels like a healthy amount of space for the people to get the information they need before they start acting. So I think that's so important. So important. It can end up creating hindrances and obstacles if they're not
Mhm.
too cognizant of people's work styles.
I've had to learn to say, I'm ready. Are you ready?
Mhm.
Right? Hey, I'm ready to go. Are you ready to go? And I kind of almost asking for permission. I think that's one of maybe as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at just kind of asking permission. Hey, I'm super comfortable. But are you? Because
That's a good
I'm
one.
ready to move forward on this. And I think that's one of those areas, the me to we. And yeah,
Mhm.
I'm young Jim is like, I'm ready. I'm just going to blow through this thing. In fact, sometimes even in spite of people or to spite people. Right. Right.
When you're using it for evil, so to
Yeah, you're
speak.
like, "You know what? I'm ready to go," and then you just take off.
I'm out.
Right? When
Yes.
we think about this in the construct of the 4 needs of followers, hope, stability,
Mhm.
compassion, and trust, where do you think it fits in that construct? Where does it add to
Yeah.
one of those or and again, it could be all of them, but talk what do you think?
I could see it adding to trust,
Mm,
because they're giving people that opportunity to try and fail and experiment. There's the freedom to experiment and just see what happens without fear of repercussions or, um, punishment, so to speak, because you do learn so much in that learning
yeah,
process.
yeah,
So I think it can create a lot of trust because they go, "Ooh, they trust me to just figure this out or to learn and grow."
yeah.
And then I also think there's an element of uh it just slipped me. Darn
Can
it.
hold on while you'll
Yeah.
come back to you in a second. I like to
Yes.
think of it in the area of compassion of because genuinely people are stuck sometimes and they won't
Mhm.
act. And it's painful.
Yes.
And a high activator leader can come alongside them and say, let me take you there. Let's do this
Mhm.
thing together. And I see that as an act of compassion. Like I see you're
Yes.
stuck. Let me help you get unstuck in this. I don't know. Did that jar anything for you? And
We must be on the same wavelength because that's what I was thinking was,
Mm,
their ability to overcome that resiliency factor that they have because it's okay to try and fail. We'll get this
yeah,
right, or
yeah,
let's just get started.
yeah,
We will figure it out. So that compassion piece, I hadn't put that link together, but that resiliency piece was there. And
yeah.
I think you're speaking to it is they can help lend that sense of compassion,
I think so.
which is a resiliency factor too of, oh, okay. Thank you.
It's going to
Thank you
be
for
okay.
lending that to me. We got
Right.
this. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I just got, I mean, just before this time today, we were going through some of the initial reports on this project that we're working on, and they're not as robust
Mhm.
as I was hoping, and it's like, well, okay, this can be a little bit of work, right? But let's get into the process and see what it becomes. And then we'll
Yeah.
adapt and do some things different. And we're probably going to have to do another round of development to kind of work some of those things out. But that's okay.
Mhm.
And to hear for people to hear that tone and be like, yeah, you know what? I'm not disappointed. In fact, I anticipated this. I knew this was going to happen. And so it's okay. It's all part of the plan. We'll come back
Yeah.
around. We'll come back around and do it again. So I think that
It's a great
provides, to
example.
me, that's compassion. That's showing compassion in a
Mhm.
team setting, right? And I think we need more and more and more of that. All of those lead to hope. I always think
Mhm.
those first three kind of lead to hope, right? That's really what we're looking for. So in a
Yeah.
team setting, I think that gives some hope. Okay,
That's a good one.
we're spending some time thinking about report dynamics. What if we have two other role-based reports,
We
that
sure do.
one's Clifton Strengths for sales and Clifton Strengths for managers. If we took the leader report and kind of paired it with the sales report, how could we use those two together for success?
Yeah. So this person, remember, they're quick to act. So possibilities can become probabilities. Ooh, say that 3 times. Possibilities can become probabilities because of this leader's responsiveness to that prospect's needs or even that client's needs. So they can build and broaden a client that they might have, the work they're doing with them. So without any delay, these are those folks, meetings are set, calls are made, proposals are built. For that prospect, they see someone who's really quick to provide customer service and support. And like, oh,
Mhm.
they're always there. They've got my back. They're not dropping the ball, leaving me, hanging for a week. So just like they can be really quick to market because they can iterate and try and fail and think about products and get them out there internally, externally, people are reciprocating that in those partnerships they have. They're like, oh,
Mhm.
they're quick to respond to my needs. They're quick
Yeah.
to give me a solution. That's
I
good.
I try to be that in my role for supporting our certified coaches, right? I want to be
Yes.
every email I want them to say, "Oh man, that was fast." Like I
Yes.
didn't expect to get it back in 10 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever. Now, some of that is I've built my schedule in a way so that I can do that. Like that's the secret. If I'm in meetings all day, well, even in meetings, I would probably answer back. I'd ignore the meeting. I'd probably answer back.
You are really responsive and I love
It's
it.
fast.
I
It's
can
fast.
ping this man on Teams and know that
Yeah.
he's going to get back to me pretty
Pretty
quick.
pretty quick. Pretty
Mhm.
quick. Yeah, regardless. But that's that arranger activator, right? For me, I love being and I love it. I never resent that. I never
Mhm.
resent someone, but again, that's the way I'm wired, right? And that's what works
Yeah.
in a leadership role for me is to be able to do those kinds of things. Okay, that's on the sales side. And I do because everybody sells something. I do see
Mhm.
myself in that sale. The faster I get an answer back to somebody, you know what? They may purchase that product from us. And that's important
Yeah.
because it can't work for free. I mean, I know people think we can,
You got
but
to
we
keep the
don't.
lights on.
Gotta gotta pay for this stuff. What about the leader report with the manager report? What if we put those two together for
Uh,
success?
they can bring a spark to the team, igniting that sense of, action and enthusiasm for the work that they have ahead of them or for the goals that they have for the year maybe. But another way they can support is if a project stalled out, this leader can
Mm,
help the team or that individual on the team just start to think through a solution to get it moving again.
yeah.
So yeah, I think this person can just create a lot of synergy and energy for folks. They've got that comfort level with risk. They bring that sense of safety. They're like, let's just try it. If it doesn't work, okay, let's try something else. Better
How
than to just sit and let it fester.
no, right on. How important is the day-to-day in this kind of setting, the day-to-day activities that a team has to complete and a manager who
Mm,
may be able to may where that their strengths may play to that advantage as opposed to and we know as
yeah.
a leader manager, you got to do both, right? You got to play to the day-to-day and you also have to plan for the future. But how is
Hmm.
important in this activator setting do you think that plays into this daily success of a team?
Oh, that's good. Well, I'm just thinking now. A lot of people have a ton of priorities on their plate.
Mm,
Depending on this activator's themes, they might be that person that can help kickstart it and say, "Oh, okay, you've got 10 things. this is our focus. Let's put our time and energy here. Let's get started on this. Let's get the ball rolling. And then we can start to look at some of these other tasks or responsibilities that we, have to get through. But they might get people energized towards the right priorities if they've really, I'll call it maturated that theme, and it's really just mature and they're self-aware of how they can direct it with intention.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you here in a second for final thoughts. I do like this idea of energy. You've said this a couple times throughout this, but this ability to bring energy, both positive and, it could be negative too if it's not handled
Giving
correctly.
People anxiety.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. I think you have to be careful.
You're moving too much.
Yeah, I think you got to be careful in that setting. Again, for leaders, those other themes that are around this, I think, are as important as the theme itself. And so really digging into these reports, you get on the leadership report, you get your top 10 and you get a great opportunity to look at all of those around it. I think a great learning opportunity. Jaclynn, any other final thoughts on Activator?
Yeah, what a great time to have that theme and get teams excited and activated for what's to come, especially after just maybe 3 years of feeling like they've just been in the weeds. It's like, ooh, to your point, this can be hopeful. Let's think about what we have, now and moving on in the future. What do we want to get started on? They have that natural energy. They're kinesthetic, they like to get stuff started and they like to physically move. So they can just bring a lot of fun and engagement and positivity on a team by nature. And I think that's that spark plug that a lot of people are looking for right now that might just kind of feel like they're in a bit of a rut. So they can re-engage them in the right direction if they're really attuned to how they're using that coupled with their other themes.
Yeah. It's listen, I've been feeling a little high centered myself. I've said a few times I need to get a new hobby. And just yesterday, practiced a little bit of this myself. Just yesterday, I was like, I don't know what made me think of this, but I might think, you know what? I'm going to grow some ginger this summer. Like I'm going to do a ginger farm. That's the most random. Isn't it the most random?
It really is random. Yeah.
But
you can have some great ginger tea.
I'm like, yeah. There's some great things you can do with ginger. It's really good for you too. Grows well in Nebraska here. So I looked up a few things. I went out after work. I went out and bought some planters and some ginger and some soil. It really was it felt good to get that activated. And I didn't wait.
Yes.
I was like, I'll do it over the weekend. I'm like, no, before dinner, I'm going to go buy some things and get this done. So I got to pick up a few more things, but that energy, right? That energy,
pep in your step.
Get that thing moving.
Identify where you're getting the pep in your step.
Yeah. No, I love that. Well, speaking of pep, we'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources you do have available in Gallup Access. Head out to gallup.com/CliftonStrengths. All these themes are available now in our resources. Funny, just a little quick side story. That actually, I've been saying this for a while. They actually weren't. And some of them were, some of them weren't. Of course, Mark, who does all the editing for this, has been helping me get those in there. He likes, like me, he likes things complete. So he spent a bunch of time. Mark, thanks. He'll be transcribing this right now. So Mark, thanks for your work. He'll be doing this here in, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks. So Mark, thanks for your work on it. By now we have it all set up, but head to the resources tab, menu, upper left-hand corner, drop that down, choose resources, put in any of the themes. You'll see everything we've done around these themes. Lots of resources available for you. Even if we hadn't tagged it right the first time, there's still a lot of resources available for you that are out there. And maybe by the time you're listening to this, we have that all fixed. Stay up to date with all the Gallup web, because we activated. Stay up to date with all the webcasts by following us on Eventbrite, gallup.eventbrite.com. Create an account, click the follow button, and we'll get a notification every time we do something new. Join us on any social platform by searching Clifton Strengths. And thanks for listening today. If you enjoyed it, share it, hit the likes button, subscribe, whatever. Just make sure you don't miss another one of these.
Just do it.
We want to thank you for joining us today. If you're listening live, stay around for some of the mid-show. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.